Okay, we're on YouTube right now. We got about 2 minutes. And I think the only person I don't see is the borough. We're on YouTube right now. We got about 2 minutes. Borough attorney.
Al sent me a text. He says that he's in the queue, but his computer shows up as my computer.
Ah, I see him. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, David.
Okay. Oh, there's Greg. Okay, we got about 1 minute. We got 19 people in the waiting room. About to start letting them in.
19, that's it?
Yeah, right?
We're losing popularity, gentlemen.
Ratings are down.
Beautiful summer day. All right, Mary, we're gonna let them in.
Okay, good to go.
Not yet, Mary. Let
right.
give everybody time to get in. I'll let you know. There's still some more people coming.
Don't forget record, Dave.
Thank you, Erica. Record is on, YouTube is on. Okay, Mayor, you can start whenever you like.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Mayor and Council meeting of August 11th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And if we could stay standing as we have a moment of silence for the 15,870 New Jersey residents who we have lost from this pandemic. Thank you. Erica?
I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice as required under the Open Public Meetings Act was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the Coaster on January the 9th of 2020. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Bunnell?
He's
Mr.
here.
Give you a thumbs up.
Gubitozzi? Yep, I got it. Mr. Gubitozzi?
Here.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mayor Engelstadt?
Here. First item is item 7, the approval of the minutes from the meeting of July 28th. Make a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bunnell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubitozzi?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Engelstadt?
Yes. Now is the time for the administrative report. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'll be covering 4 areas: short-term rentals, grants, commissions, and sustainable Jersey. The borough has recently sent out 38 letters to property owners that they are non-compliant with the borough's rental ordinance. They were also sent and requested to complete the borough's registration statement and form. These properties were identified through the new platform in partnership with Host Compliance. And now the next step is for the Code Enforcement Department to follow up on those 38 letters. And we hope to start getting some of them in between this week and next week, as those letters went out last week. As far as grants, please be advised that the borough has set up a grants page on the borough website. It should be there by tomorrow. There will be 2 opportunities posted. Right now, we got one in from Monmouth County Historical Commission's Historic Preservation Grant. And then the second one is the Monmouth County History Re-Grant Program. Please check our website for the full application and eligibility requirements. These are grants that come in from time to time from different county and state grants that the borough may not be able to apply to, but some of our commissions, society, and association may want to apply on their own. Recently, I've been assisting the chair of the Sylvan Lake Commission in researching the enabling ordinance and the agreement of charter and clarifying how the commission should be operating and cooperating with the Borough of Avon. As we looked into this matter for Sylvan Lake, it has now been determined that this would be a good exercise to perform with the Fletcher Lake Commission. So this will be an ongoing approach to work with the two commissions and ensure that the best interests of the citizens of Bradley Beach, Avon, and Neptune are carried out, as well as both lakes get the proper and timely care that they need. Finally, on the sustainable Jersey front, in June 2020, the borough was awarded an Environmental Defense Fund Climate Corps Fellow who has provided expertise and support for evaluating, planning, and implementing projects that is helping improve the energy performance of our facilities. At this time, I'd like to thank Brandon Rothrock, our EDF fellow, for the last 2 months of his intense work in this area. Brandon will be leaving us shortly and returning back to college. Brandon has brought us to a point where the borough will embark on 2 projects with our partners, New Jersey Natural Gas and Sustainable Jersey. The first project is residential energy efficiency outreach, and the second project is a commercial energy efficiency outreach, where the borough will reach out to homeowners and businesses to participate in the New Jersey Clean Energy programs. And finally, on tonight's agenda, the governing body will be considering approval of joining a renewable government energy aggregation, and that's looks to make us in a position of a group purchase with other towns where Red Bank will be the lead, and that'll be a group purchase of electricity for the entire borough. And more information on all 3 of these projects will be available in the near future, and I'll be posting that information to the borough's website, as well as the outreach itself will generate mailings to the businesses and to the residential homes. Governing body, public, that is my report for this evening.
Any questions from council for the administrator?
Yeah, David, thank you for that. On the grants that you mentioned, are those grants that the town is not pursuing, and that's why they're on the website for other entities to see them?
Yes.
Okay, so are we pursuing any grants related to historic preservation? I'm thinking of the church, of course.
Yeah, I'm still in the midst of looking for grants that pertain to that. Haven't come across any yet.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, item 9. Now it's time for public comment on agenda items only. You'll also have the opportunity at the end of the meeting for bringing up any comments with regards to anything you'd like to discuss. And there is a 5-minute time limit on comments. And I will ask our borough administrator to let me know who would like to make a comment.
If you use the electronic hand in your in the bottom in your tools, you can open up and raise your hand. We have TJ Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. That was a great report. I appreciate hearing about the short-term rentals. I'd like to just say I'm really happy to see some improvements here in the code enforcement and the coordination between code enforcement and public works, who are really the eyes and ears every day. I'm really happy to see that Andrew Neves, who drives the truck, can make notes and submit a report as a code officer to the town. That was a wonderful idea, whoever had that, because we need the eyes out there on the street to really keep the town clean and neat. And I think these are wonderful improvements, and I'm happy to see you followed up, Mr. Brown, and we did get the part-time code officer, which will also help with short-term rental issues. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Nancy Meadow?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so Regarding the items on the agenda that you did not just address, I have issues with two of them. The first of which is there's a recommended hire as a landscaper, part-time, I believe, to the end of the season. I do not know the borough's legalities, but just because something is legal doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing to do. And I see a huge conflict with hiring an offspring that's going to work directly under the parent as the department head. I would urge the council to review whether or not this is ethically and morally in the best interest of the borough. And then in choosing the maintenance company for the copier machines, which I think should be commended that there's a potential savings, I can't help but wonder if that's a lowest responsible bidder, and for how many copiers, how many departments, or is this just Borough Hall? Because it appears to me that you're tying yourself up for 4 years without a track record. And, you know, how old is the equipment? What are they going to do if it can't be fixed? All of that to go into something 4 years, you might be penny wise, pound foolish. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
David, would you just address the reporting structure for the landscape laborer, please?
The landscaper will not be reporting to his father. He will be reporting to a supervisor in public works. Most likely either Pat Allen or one of the supervisors on the road.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yes, the planning board chair, Bill.
Yes, on the consent agenda, the bill list. Excuse me? Under the bill list, under check 51602, it's a payment to Ronald Tripolti for a public defender. What is that for? Can you elaborate on that one a little bit?
Well, the public defender, the courts are back in session, and not familiarizing myself with the public defender's name, and somebody from the governing body can help me out with that. But
He is our
that
designated public defender.
and that's his payment for work. The courts are in session. They were actually in session today.
Well, shouldn't that fee be coming from the courts, not from the borough?
Not necessarily, and Bill, I'm not in a position to answer that because I don't know what the arrangement totally is, but I can look into it and get back to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else?
Yes, we have Mary Ann Spillman.
Thank you. I had actually the same question about what do we pay the public defender for?
The only thing,
I can answer that question as a legal matter,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Brown.
Greg.
So the public defender, so everyone has a Sixth Amendment right to counsel who comes to municipal court is charged with consequences of magnitude, license suspension, going to jail, significant fines over $1,000. As the government, there's obviously this legislative arm of the government. The mayor and the administrator represent the executive arm. There's a judicial branch as well. And although they're independent and they answer to the administrative office of the courts, the borough is responsible for paying the court salaries. Well, just like the borough is entitled to portions of the fees and fines collected at the court that fund those expenses from the court. In the case of the public defender, we're required to provide defense to anyone charged with a consequence of magnitude as the government under the Sixth Amendment. And but those individual defendants are required to pay a fee of $200, which is collected in the public defender trust and offsets those costs as well. It doesn't always cover the cost of the public defender, depending on how many cases, how many people pay it, how many people fees are waived under statutes that have nothing to do with the finances of the town, due process rights. But in short, that's how the money in the court works. Ultimately, it's part of the borough's budget, but there are revenues realized through the court operations or through things like the public defender trust that offset them. But at the end of the day, we're responsible for providing due process to everybody. So the borough is responsible for any shortfall and otherwise. And I know the court administrator speaks to Mr. Brown consistently regarding the finances, especially under these current circumstances and half sessions, half payments, time payment orders, things like that. So I hope that answers everyone's question on that.
It answers mine. Thank you.
Greg?
Yes,
In
sir.
reference to that, I never seen this before. That's why I questioned it. And will we be seeing this in the future also?
So the actual payment and the finance aspect of it, that's Mr. Brown and Ms. Rice's territory.
Okay.
But that's the answer of how all the money is all organized, where it's going.
Okay.
I may just add a little bit to that.
Thank you, Sandy.
As Mr. Cannon just stated, we do have a public defender trust account set up for the borough. Monies are taken in from defendants, whether they be in the range of fees or, if a defendant has to pay restitution for anything, those monies go into this public defender trust account. And then those, as Mr. Cannon stated, those fees that we take in help offset these legal fees for the public defender.
And if I can just remind everybody that we changed the way that we present the bill list earlier this year, and we added a descriptor. So previously, I don't know this is for a fact, Bill, but maybe previously simply a lawyer's name appeared and there was a dollar amount, and now we have the descriptor of public defender. I think adding that descriptor has been really helpful. So that may be why it's just you've never saw those words before.
John, if I can chime in on that one, yes, you're right.
One point for me. I got one right.
And I believe it's not a monthly bill, and I only remember this from doing the bills and still doing them sometimes. It's I think it's a 3-month period, like a July, August, September type of thing. So it's not you're not going to see that on every bill list.
Mayor, at this time, there are no further electronic hands.
Okay. We'll move on to item 10, ordinances. We have an ordinance 2020-12 up for adoption. So I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2020-12, an ordinance amending chapter 380 sewers of the borough's revised general ordinances at section 389, annual rental charge to reduce and lower sewer rates for property owners within the borough of Bradley Beach. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose? Al?
You're muted, Al.
Oh.
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad?
Yes. Questions or comments from members of the general public?
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I want to compliment the council for this ordinance. This way. This has been a long time coming. I've attended the meetings for a long time and requested adjustments to the way funds were dispersed from the sewer fund and from the general fund. I know this year the sewer fund is sending $200,000 to the general fund, and I wasn't happy about that. But I'm hoping, and I want to hold your feet to the fire, that this will be the last year that this sewer fund will be rated. And I'm very disappointed that it took this long, but I am so proud of Ms. Rice and the council for stepping up and finally running the books at an even keel. I did Oprah requests in 2019 requesting the payments to employees from the sewer fund and the time cards associated with those. And I was given an Oprah request that said no documents exist. So there was never any work broken out between the town employees and the sewer fund. Our sewer fees have been far too high for far too long. I'm looking for another reduction next year. Personally, at one of my properties, it's going to be a $600 savings. It's much needed. The whole town has been paying too much. Now, yes, we will be paying a little more in taxes, as according to this document, but I think with this team, we can really adjust that going forward, But I want to thank everyone for this ordinance. I think it's going to be beneficial for the town in the long term as we keep looking over and over our expenses and the effectiveness of our dollar purchases. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enrique?
Hi, it's Rick Bartolome. I was part of the two-man personnel that looked into the sewer as authorized by Mr. Engelstad, and Jim Sisius might be on also. And we like the way this is one of our recommendations that we had given the town council in December, I believe. So we are looking forward to going in the next steps of our recommendations.
Thank you.
I see a hand raised under Eileen Shisha's name.
Okay, here's Jim.
You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Okay, just in the way of background, Jim Shisha is from 112 4th Avenue. So Rick and I were part of the taxes committee of the strategic plan, and we were tasked with doing an analysis and producing a report that dealt with the overall subject of the sewer collection system. And we did that and finalized a report which we presented to the task force and present at the meeting. This was done in December. And at the meeting was the mayor and Councilman Gubitosi and members of the planning. And it's especially gratifying to me to see this ordinance because among our key findings, two of them are dealt with specifically in this ordinance. And they were first that as we did our analysis, what we found was that the salary component of the sewer budget for Bradley Beach was excessive in comparison with other towns of a similar size. And there was very little correlation between the salaries and the work performed. And the second key finding was that the rate structure was not fair and equitable in consideration for the waste flow. So both of these key findings, which are then incorporated into 6 recommendations that are in that report, were addressed in this ordinance. And kudos to the administration for following through with that and implementing this. This is a significant step forward in implementing some of the recommendations that were produced in our report. And I would encourage all to get a copy of the report and read it. And to the administration, I'm hopeful that we will continue on with some of the other recommendations, one of which includes ultimately doing an objective analysis of whether or not it's in the best interest overall of the borough to consider a sale of the sewer collection system. We didn't recommend that the system be sold. We're just saying there should be a very unbiased, objective analysis, pluses and minuses of whether it's to the advantage of the borough long-term to consider a sale. So again, kudos, lots of transparency recognized in this writing of the ordinance. And we're hopeful that as we look forward and look to the next year ahead, that we can examine some of the other recommendations that were produced in the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say thanks to Mr. Shishius and his partner there, Rick. I did something very similar to this about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now almost, and it's kind of brushed under the carpet. I just really like to thank you guys for moving this forward the way you did. Great work.
Mayor, there are no further electronic hands.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and adopt ordinance 2020-12. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. The consent agenda includes the following items. Item 2020-197 is the bill list. 2020-198 is the approval of the gazebo rental deposit refunds. 2020-199 is the approval of a street opening deposit refund for 109 3rd Avenue. And 2020-200 is the appointing of Justin Capone as a seasonal landscape labor for the Department of Public Works. Would anyone like any of these items voted out separately? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Resolutions 2020-201 authorizes an agreement to renew the membership in the Monmouth Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Resolution 2020-202 is the approval of the item of revenue and appropriation for Chapter 159. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, can I get a little more, can we get a bit of a description about what this is about? Just because.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure. Sandy, can you walk us through this one, please?
Sure. John, this is a grant that the borough has received for the Clean Communities money. It's something that's received every year. Depending on when the budget is adopted, you may not see these Chapter 159 resolutions through. If you get a grant before your budget is adopted, you appropriate that grant in the budget. Since we got the grant after the budget was adopted, we have to amend the budget and include this grant money. So that's what's called Chapter 159 resolution.
Great, thanks very much.
Sandy, a follow-up. What is the offsetting appropriation? I just want to understand the accounting entries.
So the accounting is you take it in as a revenue, and that's how the resolution actually reads. You're setting up an item of revenue and an item of appropriation. They're the same dollar amount. So you take in the revenue for the grant and you set up the appropriation for the grant.
But is there a specific character to the appropriation? Is there a particular expenditure we envision?
So generally, Clean Communities money is generally, they're very specific on what type of things you can spend Clean Communities money on. They're generally things like trash receptacles, the doggy pot bags that you see around town, those types of things. Like I said, the Clean Communities grantor is pretty specific about what you can spend it on. So DPW usually handles, spending money out of this grant for things that they need for, trash removal and different things like that around the town.
Okay, so those funds will be designated for those purposes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-202. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, resolution 2020-203 appoints the following individuals as Shade Tree Commission members.
I want to know if you can do me. If it's
Shana
possible.
Greenblatt Janoff, Joanne Letson, Lauren Egbert.
Trying to isolate this site plan.
Please turn your sound off, please. George Heflich, Al Majeski, and as an alternate, David Altomos. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr.
Mayor,
Vanel?
I'm sorry, I had one question.
That's okay.
Mr. Mayor, I believe there were two alternates in the ordinances. Is this still to be?
Yes. There is one more person interested. It just was a timing thing. So I could, I'll talk to everybody offline about that we can do it the next meeting.
I mean, is that someone that the mayor plans to appoint? If so, could we amend this version of the ordinance and include it now?
Okay, because it was late for this, I wouldn't have gotten it in time for this meeting. I haven't even told the mayor the name yet. So
okay.
We could all talk about it right now, but I thought it's best to just do it at the next meeting. I see David shaking his head, so.
Yeah, I think the next meeting is appropriate.
Okay, so that's been seconded.
Yes.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad?
Yes, resolution 2020-204 authorizes the hiring of Lorenzo Dangler as a part-time code enforcement officer. Make a motion to approve that hiring. Is there a second?
Again, Mr. Mayor, I have a question or two really quick.
Sure.
Number one, I'm thrilled to hear that we're hiring the second code officer, but my question was pertaining more towards his role and his time frame of availability. Mr. Brown, can you share with us when this individual will be available to enforce his duty?
There was a kind of a funny story, but there was plans to start him right away, but he just notified me and informed me that he is going to North Carolina, so he will be required to self-quarantine for 2 weeks upon his return. So as soon as he gets done with that self-quarantining, he'll be on the job.
But I was more curious about, will he be working evenings, weekends? What
Yes, he'll be working in the afternoons opposite the other code enforcement officer. He'll work some evenings and some Saturdays as well.
Because I think one of the critical issues we've wanted to address as a borough was getting that broader coverage on weekends. So I just want to make sure when you say some Saturdays, anything more definitive about pinning down Saturdays?
Well, his schedule will rotate and change. We also don't want everybody to know when he's working on Saturday, so that he can just pop up and go around and do what he has to do. As well as he'll be enforcing mainly property maintenance, and we'll finally get some assistance now with the zoning enforcement, because we have a zoning officer, but he doesn't have the time to get out to enforce the zoning. So he'll be trained and capable of enforcing zoning issues as well.
Also, just given what you just shared with us, that he'll be quarantined for a few weeks, should we be adjusting the effective date in this?
No, we'll do that on the payroll side.
We will do. So this individual will not be paid for the last 2 weeks of August.
Exactly.
But he's an hourly employee. He gets paid when he works.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
I was referencing the August 16th effective date. I just want to make sure that wouldn't be taken literally. But thank you. Okay.
Understood.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the hiring of Lorenzo Dangler. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad?
Yes. Resolution 2020-205 approves a stipend of $1,500 for Andrew Neves as part-time code enforcement officer for sanitation and recycling. Make a motion to, is there any questions or comments with regards to this before I make the motion? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to.
No, I do have a question, sorry. Just, are these lump sum payments, or are these prorated for the year?
David?
Yeah, it'll be prorated for the year.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the stipend for Mr. Nieves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, Resolution 2020-206 is for approving a stipend increase for Patrick Allen as a part-time code enforcement officer for property maintenance and construction sites from $5,000 to $7,500. Any questions with regards to this resolution? Hearing none, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, question is, once again, I'm sorry. It must be a little delay. I apologize. My only question is, I know Mr. Allen has been also very active, helping us manage or monitor the trash and recycling. Will he continue to do that as well as take on a?
So Alan, your screen is frozen and you're a little broken up, but I think that your question is, will he continue his current duties as well as his additional duties? David, can you address that, please?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes.
All right, he just dropped off.
Yeah, he was having some internet issues.
Yeah, I did get disconnected.
Oh, there he is.
I'm back, sorry.
Okay.
What was the answer?
The answer is that
it was
he
yes.
this is in addition to the duties he was already performing.
But if I could add some additional, my understanding.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So we'll have two people monitoring garbage and recycling?
No, Al, if I could add some additional information here. Andrew, who we just added, he's going to be more doing the trash, recycling, those kind of code violations. And Pat, as it was just described there, is going to be more on construction and maintenance kind of things. So there's a bit of a division of labor, if that makes sense. So does that make sense?
Council President, thank you, because I thought he was talking about trash on property maintenance issues.
Oh, but did I
He's
describe
talking
that
about,
right?
is he talking about sanitation? Then you're correct, Council President.
Okay.
And John, the only point of clarification I was looking for is, I know Mr. Allen has been, I think this maybe the sole individual monitoring trash and recycling. Will he continue to do that as well as take on, or are we shifting those responsibilities to Andrew?
The latter. We're shifting them to Andrew.
Okay.
Because he's out there in the truck anyway, right? Makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-206. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Resolution 2020-207 approves a stipend of $8,000 for Sean Heater, part-time recreation director, to manage the remaining 2020 beach season. Questions or comments with regards to this resolution? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, resolution 2020-208 awards a contract to Green Peak Imaging Solutions for copier and printer maintenance. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, and finally, resolution 2020-209 designates Red Bank to serve as the lead municipal agency as part of the Sustainable Monmouth Alliance Energy Aggregation Program. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, thank you. Now is the time for mayor and council reports. Council President Weber.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure everybody's happy that we did what we did on the sewers. Everyone's going to experience a savings. If you're a really big property owner and you're saving $600, or if you're a little guy like me and you're just saving $75 because you have one house, please consider spending some of that money in town. I think that would be really great, because we just put that money back in people's pockets. With respect to that resolution on Red Bank, make the energy, I'm just going to describe this whole thing again, just because I think it's going to be good that everybody has an understanding on it. Again, we're looking at governmental energy aggregation. We're getting together with 4, maybe 5 other towns. One town is going to hire an energy consultant. They're going to negotiate reduced energy costs for all the residents of those towns that don't opt out, because you can opt out. Anyone can opt out at any time. But they're going to negotiate energy prices, and that energy is going to have a larger portion of the energy coming from renewable sources. So, something could happen as early as 2021, but we could be looking, people that don't opt out could be looking at lower electricity prices, and we'll be actually buying more renewable energy. So I think that's great. I'm happy my council colleagues and everybody was supportive there. And thank you to Red Bank for leading that effort. Congratulations to everyone that just got appointed to the Shade Tree Commission. We're going to have a lot of work cut out for us, but really appreciate people's willingness to step up onto that newly formed commission. So thank you for that. On the beachfront, I want to just personally, anecdotally, I think it's been much more comfortable on the beach the last few weekends. I think reducing the number of dailies was a good move. And as you just saw, we added Sean Heater as the beach manager. Sean, ran our recreation department, and we didn't have rec camp in the summer. So this was a great sort of a lateral move. I think it's making use of somebody that we already have, who really didn't have the same tasks to do this summer. So I thought that was a great lateral move. I started a conversation among, staff as well as council about September. I think we're going to have more people on our beaches in September than ever before. And I think it's smart for us to have a conversation about either if we can figure out a way to have lifeguards, or if we, want to charge beach badges on the weekends or something like that. I just think we're going to be packed, and everyone's going to be packed because, again, there's still nothing to do. A lot of kids aren't in school, et cetera, et cetera. On the community development front, of course, very glad to see that we're adding additional code enforcement inspectors. I think it's great that we're doing the division of labor, with some people doing one thing that they're very familiar with and others doing some other type of inspections. I will say there was this incident with Quick Check. The power went out. Quick Check took all their spoiled food and just put it outside on the side of their building, much to neighbors' chagrin. And the town acted really quickly. I mean, of course, it would have been nice if Quick Check didn't do that, but the town acted really fast, and that was addressed in a short amount of time. So that was really great. And with respect to, an item early in the agenda, nobody used the word, but, people were talking about nepotism. We're hiring somebody that's related to somebody. I just want to point out that in the past, I don't think this ever would have even been on the agenda to hire a part-time person. I could be wrong, but I don't think it would have even have been on the agenda. And we, of course, considered this, and the fact that this person is part-time and seasonal, we didn't think it rose to that level. That said, I think as a council, we are going to take a closer look at addressing things that, would fall under the spectrum of nepotism, just more broadly for full-time positions and things like that. We'll take a look and see if we need to make any adjustments. That's my report, Mr. Mayor. Thanks so very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Sexsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to just commend everyone working for the town in a response to the tropical storm last week. All the departments, Public Works, Beach, Police, Fire, First Aid, OEM, really stepped up. Everyone, I think, thought that this tropical storm was going to be like the one 2 weeks earlier, and we unfortunately found out that it was not. And everyone just worked together very, very well. So I'd like to give that shout out to everyone. Moving on to the fire and first aid, the final number of calls for July, there were 60 first aid calls, 44 were medical, 8 for fire, 1 motor vehicle accident with injuries, 1 patient transport, and 5 answers calls. Those are water rescues calls, but none of which were in Bradley Beach. There were 8 calls for the fire department, 5 assists to the first aid, drivers only for the dual ambulance calls. Also, fire and first aid answered numerous calls during a storm, having standby crew. They also had standby crews in the first aid and fire stations for quicker responses to any emergency. So thank you to Chief Zeck for that. Again, both fire and first aid squads would like to thank the other borough agencies for their assistance in providing the support during the storm. Lastly, for the police investigated 4 thefts, 3 of which were cleared by the Detective Bureau. Patrols also arrested 5 juveniles for trespassing and curfew violations, 1 of which was also charged with criminal mischief. All 5 were from out of town. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gubitosi.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number one, I wanted to echo what Councilman Sexsmith just said, that I thought the borough responded phenomenally well to the tropical storm that we recently endured, as well as the related power outages. I want to specifically, while all areas worked extremely well to help us through that, I specifically did want to call out again our DPW, one, because they were working round the clock, working through dinner, working late into the evening towards midnight. And what was really impressive to me is I heard from various sources that our DPW personnel actually were helping individual homeowners with, either broken windows or stuck windows, things like that, that they actually entered the property and were helping individuals, which I just thought was a sign of going well above and beyond, what maybe their normal scope of duties would entail. I know Biagio Cafone specifically contacted different people he knows within JCP&L, as residents on 3rd Avenue in particular experienced some outages while the rest of the borough had power returned. And I wanted to specifically call out our fellow council member, Mr. Sexsmith, because Tim actually came over to 3rd Avenue. I happen to live on 4th and walked over with him, and he identified some down power lines that we were able to use to encourage JCP&L to return fairly promptly to the scene when they had originally indicated there may be a 3-day lag before they could return. So thank you also to Councilman Sexsmith.
My pleasure.
Despite the praise that I think deservedly goes around, I think we also learned a couple of things that I want to call out now, just so we can make sure to address them in the future. For one, residents did reach out to me to ask me if the borough had charging stations and cooling stations. I did reach out to Biagio Cafone, who shared with me that our typical source for that is our firehouse, and the firehouse was without energy, without power. So I don't believe, unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe we had an officially designated backup location. And if that's true, we should certainly plan for that in the future. There was also some questions raised about how we communicate to our residents where those types of resources would be made available. Some without power, some just not very computer literate. So the question is, one, can we have very timely updates on our website as to where those resources are, whether it be the OEM section or maybe just front page of the website? And 2, can we have paper alternatives? And I know that's not, the trend of the world around us as we look for ways to eliminate paper completely. But to the extent there are elderly or individuals who just don't have access to computers, could there be 1 or 2 locations identified, for example, Borough Hall, where information would be posted manually, say in paper? That covers my storm. I did want to commend our BA, David Brown. David, thank you for the early report where you identified actions we're taking both for short-term rentals, just to make sure that the borough has a better handle on that, but also the posting of the grants. I'm going to look at that myself and understand to the best of my ability if there are opportunities for organizations within the borough to possibly take advantage of those. We are all involved in various levels of strategic planning. I say we all, the council members, are liaisons to different task forces. For example, I'm involved with the Main Street Excellence Task Force. And to some degree, progress has been made, continues to be made. Main Street Task Force is a great example of that because we did receive a grant and we're doing some additional analysis following up on the recommendations made by the task force. In other instances, some of that work that was handed off to council in early January has been experiencing a bit of a moratorium. And having recent conversations with Paula Gavin, the goal for I think, David, you've been involved in some of these conversations as well, but the goal is for some of these task forces to be re-energized. That may mean bringing in some new members as other members have dropped out, maybe bringing back some of the original members as well. But just picking up where they left off in January to make sure that by the end of this year, we are well positioned to take action on recommendations made for, among others, our beachfront, our what was called powerful communications, and actually Jim Shishis mentioned this earlier, controlling taxes and reviewing what our next step should be in evaluating our sewers. So I just wanted to point that out to our residents that those task forces are still in play, and we are, I'll call it re-energizing our commitment to following up on their recommendations. Speaking on behalf of the Finance Committee, there are two areas that we plan to work closely with our CFO, and Sandy, you and I have talked about a couple of these, but I think we'll spend a little more time over the next few weeks or month. One of which I just want to make sure the borough is aware is we do plan to look at identifies to potentially refinance some of our existing debt. Bond rates are particularly low right now. Sandy, I know you did a preliminary analysis a month or two ago, and at that time, it wasn't compelling. However, you've also shared with me that bond rates continue to drop, so we're going to revisit that shortly, hopefully to the betterment of the borough and saving money. But also evaluate trusts that exist today, and also potentially trusts that should be established tomorrow. Existing today, in particular, future accrued leave payments. I know we have a trust in place. I don't know how well funded that is, but we may be coming back to the council to evaluate the funding of that trust, as that is intended to provide funding for future terminal leave payments and accrued leave payments. Another trust that I know does not exist today, but we do want to evaluate further, would be related to our Sylvan Lake. We have reserves that have been accrued over the years for Sylvan Lake, but they remain part of our general surplus. And there is discussion. The importance for having a trust in the first place is that we can put aside small amounts of dollars every year so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we can spend big dollars. And it's really hard to come up with big dollars in any given budget year. So there really is a need to put aside dollars and protect them. And the best way to do that is through a trust vehicle. So we're going to do a bit of an inventory to figure out where we could be better protected by utilizing trust mechanisms. And then finally, I just wanted to thank David Brown once again. David, your comments about Sylvan Lake and Fletcher Lake. I think what you didn't completely mention was, as you and Sandy pulled up our old charter, which is at least 20 years old, it identified that in particular, the BA for our borough, as well as for our sister boroughs, Avon to the south and Neptune to the north, their BAs should be active members and participants of these commissions that have been established. So I'm really excited to see that we as a borough are revisiting those charters and reestablishing our commitment to our lakes north and south. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Councilmember Bonnell?
I don't know if there's much left to say. John, Tim, and Al pretty much covered everything. Everybody who works for the town pulled together and did an awesome job this week. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
You are up next.
Yes, just to reiterate again, the storm response from our Office of Emergency Management. Just as an example of dedication of our Public Works Department, I received a urgent call from Linda Curtis at the food pantry. They were out of power, and Biagio had somebody over there very quickly and got them some assistance that saved a lot of food. So again, that's and just a lot of neighbors helping neighbors in this process was very enriching. So police, public works, fire, first aid, great job. I'll reiterate again the message I put out last week with regards to the census. If you have not yet answered the census, please do it now. It's easy. You can go online at 2020census.gov or call 844-330-2020. Takes about 10 minutes, but it will help determine if Bradley Beach gets its share of federal money over the next 10 years. So starting this month, census takers will visit all households who haven't yet answered the census. They are trained to provide assistance and answer any questions you have. All information is confidential. Update from the library. The library continues to be open at 25% capacity. Computers are available for use by appointment. They also offer curbside materials pickup as well as take-home crafts and projects for patrons of all ages. The library has a variety of virtual events that can be found on the library's online calendar and through the library's social media posts. In addition to scheduled events, the library has a handful of on-demand programs. They will have an outdoor puppet show on Monday, August 24th at 2 p.m., weather permitting. Registrations required to appropriately accommodate social distancing. To keep up with the latest events and updates, contact the library to subscribe to the newsletter. In the next few weeks, a construction project will begin to repair the library's foundation and windows. The library will remain open during the repairs. The repairs are a continuation of a capital project from 2019. And finally, I would also like to thank Sean Heater for taking on additional duties. I'm a little concerned that we're robbing Peter to pay Paul because he's done an excellent job with recreation. But that's an example of Sean's dedication to borough, him stepping up into this critical role, which has taken on some whole new meaning this year with COVID. So thank you, Sean, for stepping up. Now is the time for public comment, and we'll have our borough administrator recognize you.
Nancy Meadow.
Who?
Nancy Meadow.
Okay.
Nancy.
You're muted, Nancy.
Can we come back to Nancy and anybody else?
Yeah, I'm about to do that. Next up is Mary Ann Spillman.
Thank you, David. At the last council meeting, I read in the opposition letter from residents around in the residential zone where the restaurant is being proposed. And I just want to know when we can expect a response from the council about the concerns and the opposition that's been raised.
Mr. Cannon, would you like to weigh in there, please?
Sure. I mean, this matter is the subject of pending litigation, so the council won't have any official response as a body. That doesn't preclude your, elected officials from speaking as individuals, but as a body, we will not have any comment nor on the public record because the matter is pending litigation.
Are all of the issues that we raised pending litigation, so we can't get answers to any of those questions?
They all relate to a project that has been, litigation has been filed against them. So yes, I mean, it applies to all of them.
Oh, okay. So when will that be resolved?
If I knew that, I'd be more than a lawyer. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be sarcastic. The truth is I don't know at this moment, but I can tell you there's ongoing confidential discussions about the pending litigation amongst the governing body and development of an action plan to bring everything to a resolution or at least public discussion.
Okay, and will our opposition be considered in whatever that resolution is?
I guess I could tell you for a fact that your elected officials are listening to the residents and all parties involved.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cannon, if I could add in again, pending litigation, I'm going to measure my words.
You have a law degree, Councilman Gubitosi.
But Ms. Spellman, just for the record, from the beginning of this process, the goal was to create transparency, to share with our public what the opportunity was, and to get feedback from our public and from our planning board that would be incorporated into any final negotiations that would take place. And as Mr. Cannon suggested to you, we are continuing as a council to coordinate with the other party to determine whether or not the negotiations that we intended to proceed with from the beginning will continue to go through. So we are working diligently to have those communications and to reflect the feedback that we received from our planning board and from our residents. That is without regard to the specifics of your lawsuit, but certainly the lawsuit that you've referenced, but certainly there are, redundant, I'll call them, issues between what is being included in the lawsuit. Yep, and what we're talking about. Thank you.
We have Bill up next.
I don't know how you do this.
Bill Shook.
Yes, I have a question for Councilman Gubitosi. The newspaper article stated that you will be running for the mayor's position, but the word on the street is that you will be appointing Julie Notitis or Jane DeNoble as your replacement, and that you'll be replacing David Brown and appointing TJ Cohn as the borough administrator. Is there any truth to this?
Well, Mr. Shook, I was planning to appoint you as borough administrator, but
never.
Now that you've let that out of the bag.
Never me.
I would say none of the rumors should be paid a lot of attention to. Thank you.
David, next question.
We're back to Nancy Meadow.
Yes, sorry about the glitch before.
No worries.
Besides all the things that I bring up that you choose not to answer, I would like to thank Mr. Weber for addressing the nepotism issue. And I hope you pursue this, because to shut me up by saying that Pat Allen will be supervising Justin Capone is quite honestly an insult. You should not have relatives working in the same department. It is not in the best interest of this community. And I would think in general, relationships within the borough, you should have learned your lesson with the previous BA. Now, regarding Mr. Gubitosi's analysis and everyone else of the hurricane, I would like to underscore the fact that there was nowhere to find information regarding a cooling center and charging station. We went through this with Sandy. I repeatedly request that we analyze events after they occur to assess what was successful and what needs to be improvement. The fact that don't these places have generators? Are you telling me that the firehouse could not get an air conditioner working? Borough Hall, don't you have a generator there to keep you running when you're out of power? I really do feel that the OEM has dropped the ball. And for once, what are we going to do to better ourselves? It's for everyone. This is not just a personal thing. Is it because you guys are on the south end of town and the north end usually gets the power problems? I don't know, but I really do urge this body to address these concerns. And when you do, you need to follow up. It's not enough to send the resolution to Freehold regarding the property taxes and the county and the municipalities that don't participate. You need to follow through with your counterparts in the boroughs that are not participating. Thank you very much.
Mr. Brown, if I could just respond briefly. Ms. Meadows, thank you for the comments. I just want to touch on one piece of it, which is the, taking a look at how we responded to events, what we did well and what we could do better. The mayor can tell you since long before I came into office that was something that I always addressed on every major project and every major event that the town undertook, whether it was repair of the fountain, overseeing underground work with sewer and water mains, everything else. I am a firm believer in doing postmortems after every major event to identify just those things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Cohen.
Thomas Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue. First of all, I'd like to address Mr. Shuck's improper comments. I will not be the business administrator. I admire what Mr. Brown does, and I've had wonderful interactions with him. I don't want to be a councilman. I really enjoy my interactions over the last 6 years as a self-proclaimed public advocate and working and assisting on independent things that I feel are important for the town. That's a role I would like to continue. So I don't like people insinuating that I am looking to do something else.
I did not insinuate. I
guess you did. I don't want a pension from the state of New Jersey. I don't want to work. I want to work independently with all nonpartisan people in this town and the county to better the place where I grew up. That is my only goal. So I find it offensive that you make these accusations.
I said the word on the street is.
Oh, okay. Well, what are you making this up now?
All right, time
Stop
out.
putting words in my mouth.
Time out, gentlemen. If I had my gavel, this is where I would use it. David, next question.
Well, Mayor, you should have used it before. I haven't finished my 5 minutes yet. I want to talk to Ms. Rice, if I could, about the purchasing manual that was done. Is she available?
I'm here.
Sandy, I really appreciate that manual. My question is that after reviewing the audit reports for 2014, 15, 16, and 17, what it says is that the borough's purchasing procedures with respect to purchase orders and encumbrances should be adhered to. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
Does this purchasing manual improve this situation finally in 2020?
100%, as long as the purchasing manual is adhered to.
Okay, and who's responsible for that?
Between David and myself, we are, educating staff members, committee members, anybody that is associated with purchasing for the borough. Education is key. To understand the need for the purchasing manual, and that, rules that David and I are instilling are not my rules. They're not David's rules. These are actually state rules that need to be adhered to. That was the reason that David and I put the purchasing manual on a resolution for adoption, so that it gives us some backbone when we are speaking to, department heads or, employees regarding purchasing.
Well, we really do appreciate your service in that regard and in the sewer regard, because this is 6 years this has been in the audit report and not addressed. And I'm so happy to see that it's finally addressed now. And thank you again for the sewer. We really appreciate that ordinance. Thank you, Mayor.
Next up is Julie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to, okay. I just want to address Mr. Shuck's comment, and thank you for the compliment is what I would like to say. And that was the first time that I ever heard that I would be a replacement on the council. Mr. Shuck, going forward, if you ever have any questions that you would like to discuss, please talk to me. I think that was just a little much to say on a council meeting, and I don't think any of us have ever had that conversation, but as the quality of life chair, I take it as a compliment. So thank you for using my iPad here. Thank you for that little vote of confidence, if that were the case, but never heard of it. And I'm just disappointed that that kind of statement was made at a council meeting. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, at this time, there are no further electronic hands.
As stated, I asked the question of Mr. Gubatosi.
Okay, thank you all. Make a motion to close the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in
Erica?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good, pleasant night.